Capricorn. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when silence becomes louder than sound. When the very walls you built to protect yourself begin to close in on you. And right now, you're feeling it. The pressure. The shift. The pull. It's as if the universe is whispering and at the same time, shouting. Get up. It's time to go. This place no longer holds your future. And yet, you pause. Because leaving? That's never been your way. You're the one who stays, who endures, who builds things that last. So when the very foundation you trusted starts to crumble, it doesn't feel like transformation. It feels like betrayal. Like failure. But what if I told you this isn't collapse, it's initiation? This isn't the moment where everything falls apart. This is the moment where everything real begins. Because, my dear Capricorn, what's leaving your life right now? The people fading. The job you're no longer inspired by. The home that suddenly feels heavy. The relationships that don't see you anymore. They're not accidents. They're sacred signs. Whispers from your soul. The invitation you've resisted, disguised as discomfort. And you're not going crazy. You're waking up. You're not running away. You're finally aligning. The truth is, you've outgrown something. Not because you're selfish. Not because you're weak. But because your evolution requires space. And the life you've built is now too small for who you're becoming. So I want you to stay with me. Because in the next few moments, we're going to dive deep into the soul of this transformation. You'll understand why this departure was never meant to be an escape, but the activation of your most authentic destiny. And by the time we're done, you'll see why the pressure in your chest, the tears you haven't told anyone about, the strange coincidences, the restlessness, even the recent betrayals, they were never breaking you. They were breaking the illusion. So you could finally rise as who you were born to be. Are you ready to see the truth? Then let's begin. Part 1. The sacred restlessness. There's a quiet ache growing inside you, isn't there? Not the kind of ache that comes from heartbreak or exhaustion, but something deeper, older, more sacred. A restlessness you can't quite explain. You look around at your life, your career, your home, your relationships. And even if nothing is technically wrong, everything feels misaligned. You've done everything right. You followed the rules. You built something stable. You kept showing up. You've been loyal, reliable, consistent. But now, something inside you is whispering, this isn't it anymore. And it's terrifying, because no one around you seems to understand. They say, be grateful. You have so much. Why would you walk away from something solid? But what they don't realize is you're not chasing chaos. You're being pulled by truth. This unrest within you, Capricorn, is not a flaw in your character. It's a signal from your soul. It's the sacred discomfort that only arrives when your inner being outgrows your outer life. And because you're ruled by Saturn, the planet of structure, discipline, and karmic evolution, you don't get to walk through life lightly. Your transformations are seismic. When the universe wants you to grow, it doesn't whisper softly. It rips the rug out from under your feet. But always to reveal the ground that was more real underneath. Let me tell you a story. A real Capricorn's restlessness. There was a woman named Elena, a 42-year-old Capricorn living in Oregon. She had the house. She had the six-figure job. She was married, had 2 kids, and an enviable resume that would make any ambitious soul proud. But one day, she sat in her car after work and couldn't move. Not because she was tired, but because she realized she hadn't felt truly alive in years. The systems she'd built, the very ones that gave her identity, now felt like cages. Every breath felt like a compromise. Every calendar entry felt like a betrayal of the part of her that longed for more. She said something that struck me deeply. It wasn't depression. It was spiritual suffocation. I wasn't failing. I was shedding the life I'd outgrown. And the moment she stopped resisting that restlessness, the moment she honored it instead of numbing it, her life began to bloom again. She left her job. She moved to a coastal town. She started writing and mentoring women who were also silently crumbling inside their perfect lives. Elena didn't escape her life. She answered the call of her evolution. And so must you. A spiritual perspective. In astrology, when Saturn begins to shift in your chart, especially during returns or hard aspects, you feel what's called spiritual discontent. This is not a breakdown. It's a sacred pressure. A holy restlessness that builds until you either collapse or transform. You are not lost. You are being summoned. The feelings you're experiencing right now, the irritability, the sense that something huge is around the corner, the weird emotional exhaustion even though life looks fine. That's your soul knocking on your own front door. Are you going to answer? Life lesson. When Capricorn feels restless, it's never random. It's a sign that the soul is ready to build something higher, not just harder. Don't ignore the ache. It's your blueprint for evolution. Part 2, Saturn's Whisper. There is a reason your life feels heavier right now. A reason why the very things you once clung to, your routines, your goals, your relationships, no longer feel like home. And the reason is written in the stars, Capricorn. More specifically, it's etched into the slow, deliberate orbit of your ruling planet, Saturn. No planet is more intimately tied to your identity than Saturn. You don't just live under Saturn's influence, you embody it. Saturn is the great taskmaster of the Zodiac, the keeper of time, the karmic gatekeeper. And to many other signs, Saturn feels like a burden. But to you, Saturn is something else entirely. Saturn is your silent mentor. It doesn't speak often. It doesn't coddle. It teaches through silence, delay, and discipline. But when it does speak, when it finally whispers across the cosmos, it changes everything. And right now, Saturn is whispering. You've likely felt it in strange ways. People pulling away, plans falling apart, opportunities delayed, emotions surfacing that you thought you buried years ago, a growing dissatisfaction with what should feel fulfilling. This is not chaos. It's Saturn tightening the grip, not to choke you, but to break what was never truly built to last. Because Saturn doesn't deal in illusions. It strips away the surface so that only the real remains. And Capricorn, this is your sacred season of uncovering. You see, most people mistake Saturn for a curse. They blame it for their losses. They fear it like a dark omen. But not you. You were born for this. Saturn is your language, your rhythm, your sacred pressure. Because it is only through that pressure that the diamond of your soul is formed. Saturn teaches the long game. It teaches endurance. It rewards not the quick, but the consistent. Not the loud, but the committed. And that's why what's happening to you now is so significant. This isn't just about you leaving something. It's about Saturn preparing you to become someone. Let me share with you a story that still gives me chills. A Capricorn man named Marcus, he was 29 years old, living in Chicago. He had everything lined up, a career in finance, a condo downtown, a reputation for being the most disciplined person in every room. But something started to shift. He began waking up at night with anxiety, which he had never experienced before. He found himself staring blankly at spreadsheets he used to master in minutes. He began questioning why he was working so hard, and for what. What Marcus didn't realize was that he was entering his first Saturn return, a period between age 28 to 30 when Saturn comes back to the exact position it held at your birth. For Capricorn, this return is not optional. It is a reckoning. During those 2 years, Marcus' life changed completely. He left his job. He sold his condo. He went to grad school, not in business, but in environmental science, something he'd loved as a kid but buried for decades under expectations. Everyone thought he was crazy, but when Saturn was done with him, he had built a new life. One that matched who he actually was, not who he was told to be. That is the Saturn way. And perhaps, right now, you're not that different from Marcus. You're hearing that inner whisper that says, "This isn't working anymore." But Saturn won't scream. It will simply allow what is false to fail until only the true remains. You see, Capricorn, Saturn doesn't want you to suffer. Saturn wants you to mature your soul. It wants you to become so solid in who you are that nothing can shake you again. And to get there, It will break anything: fake jobs, relationships, even self-identities. Saturn doesn't care what you built. It cares why you built it. And if the why no longer serves your evolution, then the structure must fall. Not to destroy you, to free you. Life lesson. Saturn is not your punishment, it is your proving ground. When it whispers, listen. Because it's not trying to pull you down. It's trying to raise you up. To a life that finally matches your worth. Part 3. The tower had to fall. Capricorn, when you first saw the signs, when the foundation began to crack, you probably tried to hold it together. You tightened your schedule. You doubled your efforts. You told yourself, it's just a rough season. I can fix this. Because that's who you are. You're not afraid of hard work. You're not a runner. You're the one who stays and rebuilds while others walk away. But what if this isn't meant to be rebuilt? What if what's falling was never supposed to last? There's a reason the Tower card in Tarot exists. It's one of the most misunderstood symbols in the spiritual journey. To the untrained eye, it looks like disaster, lightning striking, people falling, fire erupting. But to the soul who's ready for evolution, it is grace in disguise. The Tower appears not to punish, but to liberate. It shows up when we've built our lives on beliefs, structures, and relationships that are no longer true. But we're too attached to tear them down ourselves. So the universe does it for us. And that's what may be happening to you right now. The job that rejected you. The relationship that collapsed. The move that didn't happen. The plan that completely unraveled. These aren't mistakes. They're mercy. They're Tower moments, divine demolition. Because Capricorn, you are meant to build empires. But what good is an empire if it's built on someone else's blueprint? The Tower clears the land so that your truth can rise. Not your reputation. Not your resume. Not your role in the family. Your essence. The part of you that has been buried beneath decades of responsibility, expectation, and proving. And I know, when things fall apart, it's not poetic in the moment. It's terrifying. You feel exposed. Ashamed. Like maybe you wasted years. Like maybe you were wrong about everything. But let me remind you of something you might have forgotten. You didn't fail. You succeeded in waking up. Let me tell you a story. There was a Capricorn man named Joel. He was 38, a small business owner in Denver. He'd spent 15 years building his company from scratch. It wasn't just his income. It was his identity. Then, within 6 months, he lost a major client, got sued, had to let go of his entire staff, and eventually had to shut down the business completely. It nearly destroyed him. He told me, it felt like I died. Not just the business, but the version of me I thought was real. But what Joel didn't know was that his life was entering a Tower phase. The demolition before rebirth. In the year that followed, he reconnected with his estranged father. He started therapy. He rediscovered an old passion for architecture. He moved to a quieter town and began designing community spaces with spiritual intention, something he'd always dreamed of but never had the luxury to pursue. He said something I'll never forget. The Tower didn't ruin me. It returned me to myself. Capricorn, what if that's what this is for you, too? When things fall apart, the mind says, fix it. But the soul says, feel it. Feel the grief. Feel the collapse. Let yourself witness what's truly left standing when the roles are stripped, the titles removed, and the illusions dissolved. What remains is what's real. And that's where your new life begins. The Tower takes away what was never yours to carry. It ends what you've outgrown. It interrupts what you would have stayed in forever if the universe hadn't intervened. Because even your strength, Capricorn, can become a trap when it turns into endurance for the wrong things. Life lesson. Sometimes the universe tears down what you worship so you can finally meet what you deserve. Let it fall. Let it burn. And in the ashes, you will find the blueprint for a future that is real. Part 4. The Hermit's Light. Capricorn, after the collapse comes the silence. When the Tower falls, when the dust settles, there's a moment where everything feels still. Not peaceful. Not yet. Just quiet. Unfamiliar. Empty. And in that quiet, you might feel something you rarely allow yourself to feel. Alone. But what if I told you that this isn't isolation, it's initiation? You see, in tarot, the card that often follows the tower isn't chaos. It's the hermit. A figure cloaked in grey, holding a lantern. He walks alone, away from the world, away from noise, away from expectation. But his path isn't random. It's sacred. Because the hermit doesn't run from the world. He retreats so he can hear his soul. And Capricorn, that's what you're being called into now. After all you've endured, after the structures that held you up have crumbled, your spirit isn't asking for another plan, another strategy, or another climb. It's asking for stillness. For quiet. For reconnect ion. And I know that's not your default mode. You're the builder, the organizer, the executor. You feel safest when there's motion. But sometimes, motion is just a clever way to avoid truth. Because in stillness, there's nowhere to hide. You come face to face with everything you've postponed. The dreams you've buried. The wounds you haven't named. The version of you that existed before the expectations. And in that silence, you begin to hear your real voice again. Let me tell you about another Capricorn I once worked with. Her name was Dolene. She had been a public school administrator in Georgia for nearly 20 years. She was known for her leadership, her work ethic, her toughness. But when her father passed, something inside her snapped. She didn't cry in public. She didn't take extended leave. She kept everything running. Because that's what Ma KT does. But 6 months later, she found herself sitting in her car in the school parking lot, unable to move. She wasn't burnt out. She wasn't angry. She was empty. So, for the first time in her life, she stepped back. She took a year off. She didn't travel. She didn't start a side business. She simply stopped. She gardened. She wrote in journals. She read books she never had time for. She walked without purpose. And somewhere in the stillness, her father began to visit her in dreams. Memories surfaced. Regrets softened. And a new version of herself began to take shape, one that didn't lead from performance, but from presence. When she eventually returned to work, she didn't come back to the same job. She became a counselor instead, guiding other educators through burnout, grief, and transition. She told me, that year of silence saved me. I stopped being the role. And I finally became myself. That's the hermit's light. Capricorn, this sacred pause you're in, it isn't regression. It's realignment. The hermit withdraws not because he is lost, but because he knows where he's going and he refuses to take others' maps to get there. This is the part of your journey where you learn to trust your own light. Not the voices around you. Not the opinions, the titles, the pressures. Just your voice. Your truth. Your pace. And when you emerge from this sacred solitude, you won't just re-enter the world. You'll return with clarity, with vision, with authority that can't be shaken, because it was born in silence, not given to you by the world. So let yourself slow down. Say no. Turn off the noise. Go inward. Because what you'll find there will be the most powerful guide of your life. Life lesson. When Capricorn withdraws, it's not to disappear, it's to return fully aligned. Your silence is not empty. It's sacred. Honor it. Part 5. You're leaving a cage, not a castle. Capricorn, here's a hard truth. Not every structure you built was meant to last forever. Some were only meant to carry you to a certain point. And now, those same walls that once protected you are starting to confine you. It's easy to confuse what's familiar with what's safe. To believe that just because something has stability, it also has value. But deep down, you've already sensed it. What once felt like a castle now feels like a cage. You may be in a career that pays well, with a title that impresses others. But every Sunday night, your chest tightens. You may be in a relationship that looks picture perfect. But there's no depth, no spark, no room to breathe. You may be living in a beautiful home, but you no longer feel like you belong there. So many Capricorns stay because they confuse endurance with purpose. But staying in a place that has expired isn't resilience. It's slow erosion. You weren't meant to live inside a legacy that no longer lights your spirit. And here's the most dangerous part of all. Because you're so capable, so reliable, so disciplined, you can succeed in places that are secretly killing you. You can keep the business running, keep the relationship alive, keep the schedule packed. But inside, something is breaking. Quietly. Let me tell you about Brianna, a Capricorn entrepreneur from Phoenix. She built her wellness brand from nothing. 10 years of grit, sacrifice, 16-hour workdays. She opened a yoga studio, had dozens of clients, and became a recognizable figure in her industry. To everyone else, she was a success story. But privately, Brianna was unraveling. She hadn't taken a full day off in over 3 years. Her marriage had grown cold, and even in moments of rest, her mind never stopped planning, fixing, controlling. She told me something that stayed with me. I realized I had built my own prison. The key was in my hand the whole time, but I was too proud to unlock the door. Eventually, her body forced her to stop. She collapsed from adrenal fatigue and was bedridden for 2 months. During that time, something shifted. She began journaling not about her business, but about her truth. She realized she wasn't meant to run a wellness brand. She was meant to guide others through burnout, especially high-achieving women like herself. She sold her studio, took a full year off, and returned not as a coach, but as a healer. One who taught people how to listen to the signs before the collapse. Brianna left what looked like a castle, but what she stepped into was freedom. Capricorn, this may be the season where you confront this very truth. The life you've built may have once been right, but it's no longer yours. It may serve your reputation, but it doesn't serve your soul. And if you're honest with yourself, you already know. You don't need another sign. You don't need someone else's permission. You don't even need a plan. You need courage. Courage to admit that comfort is not the same as alignment. Courage to walk away from something that's working on the outside, but dying on the inside. Courage to trade the illusion of control for the truth of freedom. Because when you do, when you finally walk out of the cage, you'll realize something breathtaking. The door was never locked. Life lesson. What you're leaving may look like security, but it no longer feels like freedom, and that is your answer. The future that awaits you will not require you to shrink. Part 6. Money without meaning. Capricorn, no one understands the value of hard-earned success more than you. You've spent your life climbing, through effort, endurance, and sacrifice. And for the most part, it's worked. You've gained respect. You've built stability. You've achieved what others dream of. But here's the question no one dares to ask you. At what cost? Because somewhere along the way, the purpose behind the pursuit got blurry. The money came. The titles followed. The recognition was earned. And yet, why does it feel so empty? Why do you look at your bank account and still feel uneasy? Why does your success no longer taste like victory? It's because, Capricorn, you were never here just to accumulate. You were here to create meaning, to lead with purpose, to build legacies that nourish the soul, not just feed the ego. But in a world that constantly tells you to measure your worth in numbers, it's easy to forget. You were praised for being responsible, rewarded for staying late, admired for having it all together. And quietly, almost unconsciously, you began to equate achievement with value, productivity with identity, money with worthiness. But now you feel it in your body, in your spirit, in that ache you can't explain. The numbers no longer inspire you. The grind no longer fulfills you. You've built wealth, but lost something deeper along the way. And you're not alone. Let me tell you about Derek, a Capricorn who spent 2 decades in real estate development. By 45, he had properties across 3 states, a private jet membership, a retirement account that most people only fantasize about. But one evening, while sitting in his penthouse, he said aloud to no one, "If I died tonight, not a single person would cry because they knew me. They'd cry because they admired me." That moment broke him. Not because he didn't value what he had achieved, but because he realized none of it truly reflected who he was. Derek left the business within a year. He didn't renounce money. He didn't throw everything away. He simply redefined what wealth meant to him. He began mentoring formerly incarcerated youth. He started a foundation that invested in community-led housing projects. He went from building structures to rebuilding lives. And the strange thing, he didn't make less money. But for the first time, the money felt like service, not sacrifice. Capricorn, this is the shift your soul is calling for. It's not telling you to stop earning. It's telling you to stop bleeding for things that no longer align. Because wealth without meaning becomes a burden. And no one carries silent burdens more than you. You are allowed to redefine what success looks like. Not based on status. Not based on what you should want. But based on what actually brings you peace, purpose, and presence. Ask yourself, if your wealth costs you your health, your time, your relationships, your joy, then is it really wealth? Or is it a prison built with gold bricks? You deserve better. You've earned the right to say, I want my life to feel as good as it looks. And that's not selfish. That's sacred alignment. Life lesson. If your wealth costs you your soul, it's not wealth, it's debt disguised as gold. You were born to build legacies, but never at the expense of your aliveness. Part 7. A love that aligns with the new you. Capricorn, for most of your life, love has been something you managed. Not something you surrendered to. You've treated it with the same discipline you bring to everything else. You've chosen partners who are stable, loyal, practical. You built relationships like you build empires. Brick by brick, slowly, deliberately, with duty at the core. But here's the truth your soul has been whispering lately. That version of love no longer fits the person you're becoming. Because the love you once accepted was designed for a version of you that hadn't yet awakened. A version of you that equated love with sacrifice. That thought safety meant silence. That believed stability meant suppressing your deeper needs. But now you're changing. You've torn down old structures. You've redefined success. You've reclaimed your voice. And as you do, something incredible happens. Your heart recalibrates. You no longer crave the old dynamics. You no longer confuse comfort with connection. You begin to desire a love that reflects your truth, not your trauma. A love that doesn't require you to dim, bend, or carry everything. A love that meets you, eye to eye, soul to soul. A love that breathes with you, grows with you, transforms with you. Let me tell you about Nathan, a Capricorn man in his 50s who spent most of his life in relationships that worked. That's how he described them. They worked. There was no abuse. No big betrayals. Just duty, predictability, and a quiet kind of loneliness. He had built his life around providing, financially, emotionally, practically. But never once had he asked, who's providing for me? After his second divorce, Nathan took a long pause. No dating. No distractions. Just time with himself. And during that space, he realized something profound. I had never actually shown up in a relationship as me. I was always a role. A protector. A provider. A fixer. But never just a man who also needed to be seen. That realization changed everything. Years later, he met someone unexpectedly. A woman who didn't need him to carry everything. Who didn't love his image, but loved his stillness, his silence, his slowness. Who didn't want the empire, she wanted him. And for the first time in his life, Nathan said, I don't feel needed. I feel chosen. Capricorn, that's the kind of love you're walking toward now. Not a rescuer. Not someone who idolizes your strength but neglects your softness. Not someone who wants the provider, the planner, the pillar. But someone who wants you. The you that's emerging through all this inner work. The you that's learning to receive. The you that doesn't have to earn affection through performance. This love will be different. It won't start with fireworks. It will start with recognition. The kind that says, I see you. Not for what you do, but for who you are becoming. And when that love comes, you'll know. Because it will not feel like a task or a transaction. It will feel like peace. Like space. Like the place you never knew you were missing until someone mirrored your soul back to you. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to mold yourself to be chosen. You only have to continue becoming who you really are. And the love that matches your frequency will find you. Life lesson. The right love won't ask you to shrink for it. It will rise to meet who you're becoming. You don't need to prove your worth to be loved. You only need to be true and let love recognize the truth. Part 8. The body keeps the truth. Capricorn, you've mastered the art of pushing through. Headache. You work anyway. Exhaustion. You call it just a long week. Tightness in your chest. You say, I just need to breathe. You've trained yourself to ignore the body, because the mind has always been louder. But what happens when the body starts speaking in a voice too clear to ignore? The truth is, your body has been whispering for years. It remembers everything your mind tries to suppress. The nights you didn't sleep but still showed up. The relationships that drained you but you maintained. The work days where you smiled through burnout because quitting felt like failure. Capricorn, your body holds all of it. You are not just tired. You are carrying weight that was never yours to bear. And the longer you ignore it, the louder the body becomes. It starts as tension. Then it becomes chronic fatigue. Then your immune system weakens. Then your heart starts racing for no reason. Then your body forces you to stop because you won't choose to. But this isn't weakness. This is wisdom. Your body is not betraying you. It's trying to save you. Let me tell you about Maria, a Capricorn nurse from New Jersey. She was a model of discipline. 12-hour shifts. Single mom. Caretaker for her aging parents. She carried everyone. Until one day, during her morning commute, she blacked out at the wheel. Doctors found no severe condition. No trauma. Just exhaustion. Pure, unrelenting, systemic exhaustion. It was her body's way of saying, no more. While recovering, Maria began tracking her physical patterns. She realized she hadn't had a full day of rest in over 18 months. She hadn't cried in even longer. And every part of her life was built around showing up for others, but never for herself. She said to me, I thought I was strong because I never needed help. But the strongest thing I ever did was admit that I did. Capricorn, this is the crossroads you're standing at. You can keep pushing. You can keep calling your burnout normal. You can keep numbing your body's signals with coffee, screens, and tasks. Or you can pause and listen. Because buried beneath the fatigue, the tension, the anxious heart, is a message. And it's saying, you don't need to be invincible. You need to be honest. With your energy. With your needs. With what your body has been trying to tell you all along. This transformation you're going through isn't just spiritual. It's biological. Your nervous system is rewiring. Your hormones are recalibrating. Your sleep patterns are resetting. Your breath is trying to deepen. But none of that can happen if you keep running at the same pace while your soul is begging to slow down. You're not meant to break. You're meant to rebalance. So start noticing the signals. Where do you hold tension when you're afraid? Where does your breath stop when you feel unseen? What part of your body aches when you suppress the truth? Your healing begins not in your mind, but in your flesh. It's the sacred temple that has carried you through every silent breakdown, every invisible battle, every unspoken grief. It's time you start listening to it and honoring it. Life lesson. If your body keeps collapsing under the weight of your goals, maybe it's not failure, maybe it's sacred protest. Your worth is not measured by how much you endure. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is rest. Part 9. When relationships expire. Capricorn, you are loyal to the core. You hold on. To people, to promises, to partnerships. Even when they no longer fit. Even when they begin to hurt. Even when something inside you already knows. This season is over. You've never been quick to cut people off. You give chances. You stay. You fight for what others let go of. But here's the truth your soul is quietly confronting right now. Some people are not meant to walk with you into your next chapter. And that doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make you wrong. It simply means you're outgrowing what once fit. Relationships expire not because of drama or betrayal, but because evolution creates distance. You're rising into a new version of yourself. And not everyone can rise with you. Some will resist your change. Some will mock it. Some will beg for the old version of you, the one who dimmed your light to keep the peace. And some will quietly fade, because your healing makes them confront their stagnation. This is not cruelty. It's clarity. Let me tell you about Jordan, a Capricorn woman who ran a successful design firm with her best friend of 14 years. They were inseparable. Built the business from the ground up. Shared everything. But as Jordan began to awaken, doing deeper self-work, healing past traumas, reconnecting with her purpose, the friendship began to strain. Her friend didn't understand her need for space, mocked her spiritual journey, resented the emotional boundaries Jordan was setting. And one day, after a tense disagreement, her friend said, "You're not the same person I started this with." To which Jordan replied, "I hope not." Ending the friendship felt like a death, but staying in it would have been a slow burial of her truth. Jordan moved forward, grieved deeply, and within a year, she found herself surrounded by people who not only accepted her transformation, they inspired it. Capricorn, some people were aligned with the version of you that survived. But you're no longer surviving. You're becoming. And with every layer you shed, you may find certain relationships can't breathe in your new atmosphere. Let them go. You're not abandoning them. You're honoring your alignment. And real love, true resonance, will never require you to shrink. It will never punish your healing. It will never resent your becoming. You're allowed to say, "I love you, but I can't stay in a dynamic that diminishes my growth." You're allowed to bless someone from afar, to forgive without reconnecting, to close a chapter without writing an ending soaked in guilt. Your soul family is not behind you. They're ahead of you, waiting for you to rise into the frequency where they've always existed. Make room. Life lesson. If they can't walk with your truth, let them go. Your destiny will make room for those who can. Not every goodbye is a loss. Some are a sacred clearing, making space for what your soul actually deserves. Part 10. The True Justice. Capricorn, you have a deeply rooted sense of fairness. You believe in earning what you have. You respect structure, effort, integrity. You don't cut corners, so when others do, and still get ahead, it cuts you. And when you've been betrayed by a friend, a partner, a system, or even yourself, the instinct is to correct it, to fix it, to prove that truth still matters. But here's a truth you may not want to hear right now. Not all justice arrives in the form of visible consequences. Sometimes, justice is quiet. Sometimes, it doesn't look like revenge. It looks like release. It looks like you no longer caring who wins, because you finally realize, peace is more valuable than being right. That's a hard lesson for someone like you, Capricorn. Someone who carries memory like stone. Someone who remembers every time they were overlooked, misused, or underestimated. But here's the shift. You're no longer here to fight for what you deserved back then. You're here to receive what's aligned now. Because when you step fully into your truth, the universe doesn't just reward you with balance. It rewards you with clarity. Let me tell you about Cam, a Capricorn who was fired from a non-profit he helped build from the ground up. Politics, jealousy, ego. They pushed him out and spun a narrative that painted him as the villain. He was devastated, angry. He wanted to clear his name. For 6 months, he obsessed over it. He drafted emails. He wrote statements. He thought about lawsuits. Until one day, sitting in silence, he asked himself, even if I win this battle, is it the life I still want? And the answer was no. That clarity was his turning point. He left the fight, moved across the country, started a wellness center that combined social work, energy healing, and community care. 3 years later, his name was thriving in a completely new space. And the old organization that rejected him, it collapsed under the weight of its own ego. Cam didn't destroy them. He simply outgrew them. And that was the justice. Capricorn, real justice doesn't always look like them falling. Sometimes it looks like you rising. It looks like you finally sleeping through the night without replaying the past. It looks like you no longer explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. It looks like you walking into a room and not needing to prove your worth because your presence already carries it. Justice isn't just what happens to them. It's what unfolds within you. The healing, the wisdom, the self-respect, and the most powerful justice of all, you no longer being available for cycles that dishonor your growth. You stop fighting for a seat at tables you were never meant to sit at. You build your own. And the people who are meant to be nourished by your truth, they find you. That's not karma. That's alignment. And it's more powerful than anything you could orchestrate on your own. Life lesson. True justice isn't loud. It's the peace you feel when you stop proving and start living. You're not here to avenge the old you. You're here to embody the healed you. Part 11. Building the New Empire. Capricorn, everything you've been through, the breakdowns, the departures, the deep unraveling, has led to this moment. Not a return, not a redo, but a rebuild. This time, you're not constructing from fear. You're not reacting to expectations. You're not trying to earn love, stability, or validation. You're building from truth. And that changes everything. Because the empire you're about to create now will not be forged in the image of your wounds. It will rise from the essence of your wisdom. You've learned what doesn't work. You've tasted success that didn't satisfy. You've worn roles that suffocated your spirit. Now, you get to ask, what kind of life do I want when I'm no longer performing? What kind of work nourishes me and serves others? What kind of relationships mirror my evolution, not my fears? This is where the foundation begins. Not with 5-year plans or productivity hacks, but with integrity. Not the kind you show the world, but the kind you show your soul. Let me tell you about a Capricorn named Alyssa. She was once the director of a global media agency. She had power, status, influence. But after a slow unraveling of burnout, disillusionment, and spiritual fatigue, she walked away. For a while, she didn't know what came next. She wasn't trying to reinvent herself. She was trying to remember herself. In the stillness, she returned to what had always moved her as a child. Storytelling. Not marketing. Not branding. Not monetizing. Just truth-telling. She started a podcast not to go viral, but to create a space where people could speak without masks. She built a community, one rooted in vulnerability, not performance. And slowly, her new empire emerged. Not with capital and contracts, but with connection and clarity. And here's the most beautiful part. She made less money at first, but she felt wealthier than she ever had. Because what she was building now, it belonged to her soul. Capricorn, this is your invitation. To build a life that feels like home on the inside, not just impressive on the outside. To create work that aligns with your values, not just your resume. To surround yourself with people who see your heart, not just your titles. You no longer have to hustle for a life that looks good but feels hollow. You're not starting over. You're starting true. And this new empire, it won't need you to sacrifice your body, your joy, or your peace. It will rise slowly, steadily, like everything you build. But this time, it will carry your name, not someone else's blueprint. It will reflect your soul, not your survival. It will outlast everything because it's built from who you really are. Life lesson. This time, you're not building to be seen. You're building to be whole. Let the life you create next be so honest. You never have to abandon yourself again. Part 12. The breakthrough that was always destined. Capricorn, take a breath. Look at what you've just walked through. The crumbling of structures you once depended on. The sacred silence that followed. The release of people, places, and patterns that no longer honored your becoming. The deep healing of your body. The redefining of success, love, and justice. And finally, the quiet, steady rise of a new life built from truth. This is not the story of someone who ran away. This is the story of someone who finally came home. Because here's the secret. Your breakthrough was never meant to look like fireworks. It was meant to feel like clarity, not a loud victory, but a deep exhale. A moment where your soul whispers, yes, this is who I really am. For so long, Capricorn, you've lived for the outcome. You've chased goals. You've built a reputation. You've fought to be seen, understood, respected. But in this new chapter, something has changed. You no longer crave achievement for survival. You crave alignment for wholeness. And that shift, that's the breakthrough. Let me tell you about Malcolm, a Capricorn in his early 60s. For decades, he built his life around being the rock for everyone. Father of 4, CFO of a major company, provider, planner, protector. But behind the scenes, he was spiritually starved. He had money but no meaning, family but no intimacy, status but no self. Then, after a near-death experience, a heart attack during a business trip, everything changed. He told me, when I thought I was dying, I didn't see numbers or headlines. I saw the moments I missed. The words I never said. The version of me I locked away so I could keep it all together. That moment cracked something open. He left his job. He wrote letters to each of his children, not emails, handwritten letters. He began painting again, something he hadn't done since he was 16. He started volunteering at a hospice, sitting with people who were taking their final breaths. And one day, he looked at me and said, I spent my life climbing ladders I didn't build. Now, I walk barefoot on ground that actually belongs to me. Capricorn, that is what your transformation has been about. Not burning everything down. Not becoming someone new. But remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. That childlike version of you, curious, kind, intuitive, bold. That part of you still exists. And now, for the first time in a long time, you're safe enough to let them lead. You're not chasing anymore. You're aligning. You're not proving anymore. You're living. You're not carrying the world. You're finally listening to your own. This breakthrough, this sacred turning point, was never about escaping anything. It was about returning to everything that matters. And now, as you take your next step, know this. The road ahead is no longer paved by pressure. It is guided by purpose. And everything you thought you lost was simply being cleared to make room for the life that was always meant to be yours. Life lesson. The breakthrough was never about becoming someone new, it was about remembering who you were before the world told you to be someone else. Now you're free to live that truth, fully, deeply, unapologetically. Conclusion, a life that finally belongs to you. So here we are, Capricorn. Not at the end, but at the real beginning. You've walked through fire. You've sat in silence. You've let go of what once defined you, so you could rediscover what was always sacred within you. And now you are not who you were. You're not chasing. You're not fixing. You're not explaining your worth to people who never truly saw you. You are, finally becoming. This is the moment where you start building a life that fits your spirit. A life that feels like home on the inside. A life where you no longer shrink to survive, but rise, fully, to thrive. Let this be your reminder. You didn't lose yourself. You outgrew the version of you that settled. And that is something to be proud of. Your journey hasn't been easy, but it's been real. And real is where the power lives. So from this day forward, walk differently. Not faster. Not louder. Not for anyone else. But deeper. Truer. Wiser. Because when a Capricorn finally aligns with their soul, nothing and no one can stop what comes next. This is your era of embodiment. Not just knowing your worth, but living it in every breath, every decision, every sacred boundary. You're not rebuilding the old you. You're anchoring the eternal you. And your next chapter, it won't be written with fear. It will be carved in truth. If this message found your heart, if something in your soul whispered yes, that's me, then don't let this be the end of our conversation. Subscribe now to Zodiac Secrets Revealed. Because this is just one doorway into a deeper journey you were born to walk. And if you're brave enough to walk it, you won't just change your life. You'll become the blueprint for others to rise to. Your destiny isn't behind you. It's waiting. And you, Capricorn, you're finally ready.